Some motivations. Artificial intelligence, as we all know, can widely apply across various fields. For example, it can be used to generate new assets or 3D environments, drive virtual agents to move and speak, or monitor and analyze users' behavior. However, the metaverse is not yet widely accessible. Many demos are offline, and they will need to be integrated into live systems. Also, multi-user interaction is fundamental, but yet it is only now starting to be widely acknowledged. So to address these challenges, we developed Ubiq Genie, a system that enables the integration of external open source frameworks with Ubiq social VR platform. So this framework and its modular architecture enable the easy integration of services and offloading computationally intensive process to server for novel VR applications. So for example, one service we're demonstrating today is the ChatGPT. So I'll now play a short...
Hi agent, my name is...
I'll now play a short video demonstrating the conversational agent built with Ubiq Genie.
Nels, and this is my friend Ben.
Hi Nels, nice to meet you and Ben. How can I assist you today?
Hi Agent, me and Nels are interested in doing a general knowledge trivia quiz. Could you take on the role of quizmaster for us and ask us questions in alternating order?
Sure, I'd be happy to be your quizmaster. Who would like to go first?
And due to the time limit, we'll just show it very quickly. I would like to also show you another demo of not related with ChatGPT, but also very interesting using Ubiq.
All right, hi Ben. Let's decorate this place. Let's see. Make this look like what?
Oh, sorry.
Let's see. Make this look like wallpaper texture of strawberries in the style of Andy Warhol. Make this look like a quilted black leather texture.
Okay, so due to time limit again, just stop here. So to get Ubiq Genie, you can go to our GitHub repository and download. Feel free to download. I'll just go to the repository and quickly show what is there. So let's take a look of its structure. Again, similar as the standard Ubiq library, we have a node folder, which is the server, and a Unity folder, which is the client. You can also view more information over here, and also the setup steps and some kind of documentation and samples on the website. So I'll briefly introduce the high-level structure of Ubiq Genie. So the high-level architecture of Ubiq Genie mainly consists of three main components. The Ubiq scene, which is the client. This serves as the interface for VR user and contains application-specific Unity components. The applications, the green one, I'm not sure if you can maybe make it larger. Okay, so the green one is the application. You can see this involves both the client side and the server side. This is to handle the communication between different services. So what is services? Services are purely on the server side. These are the modular that can be reused across different applications. Each service is responsible for a specific task. For example, this is where the external frameworks can be integrated. So for example, a conversational agent application may involve interaction with text-to-speech and speech-to-text services, text generation services, and so on. So let's go back to the report. repository. So the first step, if you want to install Ubiq Genie, is to clone this repository and follow the instructions over here to install Node.js and also the Unity. Next, let's go to the server side, which is in the Node.js folder. So here we can see the application folder and the services folder. So just as we discussed earlier, when going over the high-level architecture, we have the application and services. So the service folder contains a collection of example services. For example, we have the audio recorder, image generation, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, and text-to-speech, text generation as well. This is where the ChatGPT is involved. So if you can click in and see all the things. So the application folder over here involves some sample applications that make use of these services that I just shown. So such as the conversational agent, we have, and also texture generation and transcription. So if you click on each of the applications, you can actually see instruction on how do you run the sample through Node.js and how do you set up on the client side on Ubiq as well. So due to time limit, I'm not going to get into details, but feel free to explore all of them. And yeah, that's a very quick tutorial of how to use Ubiq Genie and how to generate a ChatGPT agent using Ubiq. And thank you very much. And I'll pass back to Ben.
At the moment, all those services are hosted by Node, but there should be a pure Python implementation. So that's soon contributed by a company we're collaborating with. So it'd be easier to just download things from other services and just have them connect directly to Ubiq. So while Ubiq is mostly a C# interface, there are pure you can write pure JavaScript and clients, and shortly, hopefully, pure Python ones as well. And somebody has asked about social virtual agents. So there's that ChatGPT interface, which obviously there's a few variants of, which aren't made open source simply because they were sort of made in a hurry for specific things. Ben is smirking. Which do more things. There is a paper called AI SOP, which is a sort of a longer term storytelling agent where you can ask it to tell stories over time. There is a second version of that, which will come out later this year. The code for that will be available. If the person who asked is interested in sort of agents with more complicated behaviours, one of the examples is a stress test of bots. So that are sort of autonomous bots that just go in and sort of do that. So if you've got a simulator that simulates agents in a social situation, you could just extend that one. So it's got two versions, one that just does pure voids, so sort of very simple physical simulator, because that's an interesting stress test of how things get desynchronized due to latency. And there is another one which actually simulates agents that sort of stress test scalability models. So they have little plans about going to different places in the world so that they can test our scalability, which I don't think we're going to talk about today. But there's a whole paper about testing scalability, and there's actually a student finishing a project now, which is a really interesting sort of multi-room system that's a bit like a conference centre. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, it's good. You can add enough bots to make the server crash. It's quite fun. Oh yeah, so we'll do a few more how do I's. This is a very common question of how do you switch avatar. So there's a quick kind of video tutorial here on the right, and it's not too complicated. So basically, we provide you with a bunch of different prefabs that you can use for Ready Player Me avatars and these Rocket Box avatars, and you can kind of just like swap those in, and you'll immediately be ready to go. So the avatar manager itself, it has this thing called a prefab catalog, which is how you let peers know, like other versions of the software know these things might be spawned or changed to at runtime. And the spawning system is the same for spawning objects as it is for spawning avatars. So it's the same code under the hood. And so you need to add that prefab to the avatar catalog, and then you just need to swap it out on the avatar manager. And the avatar manager itself will take care of syncing the changes to other peers. So here's that quick video tutorial. Apologies, it's now quite small, but what it's kind of doing here is it's finding the avatar manager. It's bringing up a properties window so that you can keep accessing it, which is very useful in Unity because it keeps changing which objects it highlights in the inspector. And then we drag in that Rocketbox avatar to the prefab catalog, and then we hit play, and Ubiq spawns the kind of default cartoony avatar. And then we drag in the Rocketbox avatar, and it will change it. So it changes it for other peers as well. And you can see by that small amount of leg movement there that's the motion matching based animation. But what do you do if you want to get an avatar that's not Rocketbox and not ready to play me? Well, then you have to make a kind of custom prefab yourself. So we have something called the input system, which allows those kind of input to be gathered from the scene and sent to your avatar and then synced over the network. So here's an example by our colleague Clara Brandstatter. She has made this work for the kind of meta avatars. That's just an image, which is not very good. Okay, we'll continue for now. But it's possible to get those kind of meta avatars in and kind of fully animated. This is one more how do I deploy my own applications to the web. So there's quite a few steps, and it's kind of unfortunately it's very text heavy. But feel free to just kind of breeze over this, and if you need it later, you can come find this presentation on the Ubiq website. Basically there are kind of a few different steps to make the application compatible with the web, and then there's a few different steps to set up that application on the internet. So making the application compatible, we won't go through all of this, but making the application compatible just involves going through these 5 steps here. So that's all documented in the kind of README that you'll find in that sample. And then actually hosting the application is no different from hosting any kind of static application on the web, except that you will need a secure context because it uses things like WebRTC, which require it. So that's kind of you can find many different tutorials for that online. It's nothing specific to Ubiq, but you'll need to make sure that you pass those certificates over. You can still continue to use Nexus, which is our kind of public server. That should still work fine. But if you need a bit more reliability for your study, then do go ahead and host your own server in that case. In which case you will need certificates for that too. That's all I got, unless there are any other questions from the Discord that that maybe people had.
Yeah, so Farhan asked about motion capture. So motion capture systems and maybe even using VRPN. So I think the short answer to that is we have done something along those lines in the past. We have a demonstration. So the meta avatars are there because you get face tracking and eye tracking built into them. Also, they have very nice animation of the legs. Of course, they're not open source, so you can't make your demo open source. But we have a separate demo which also does the face tracking, and did it a different way before the meta avatars came about. Which basically Ben wrote a piece of code that basically uses the Ubiq networking to just copy any arbitrary hierarchy of objects, including a skeleton, and any blend shapes that it encounters on the way down. So I said I would show that demo. I can't actually because it's 6 gigabytes to check out. So catch me later in the week. It's not on that laptop there, but it's using some custom avatar and then the Meta Quest Pro to animate. But it has that demo has no knowledge about how the skeleton got there. It's not a meta specific demo. It's just copying the skeleton that Meta's generating. So if you were, and then it's just networked, and anybody that, because it's using the avatar system, because other clients have got the avatar, then Ubiq's just animating it. So if you wanted to do something esoteric, like plug it into your, well, if you wanted to use something, you used VRPN to stream motion capture, you'd probably have to have a client that brought it in and then applied it to an avatar. But then that would just be networked automatically once you've got the tracking data into the system.
Yeah, kind of similar to the kind of networking the whole scene graph. It's sort of like, you know, less efficient, but it can get you going much quicker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so here's Colorado Branch Data's example of the Meta avatar. Okay, so it's nice. You got the kind of the hand tracking in there and the face tracking and so on. And this is just feeding the kind of the input in from the kind of the Meta player rig into Ubiq's avatar input system, and then feeding it back out to the avatar on each side. So it works across the network too.
And then somebody asked, don't leave that slide up, somebody else asked about recording verbal and non-verbal sessions. So could you, yeah.
Oh right, yeah. So so you can actually see at the bottom of this video, there's Clara's kind of interface for record and replay. So what she's created here is this system for recording entire sessions, and it records. You know, it's configurable, but it records at the very least kind of voice chat and kind of avatar positions and full poses and facial blend shapes and all that kind of stuff. And then you can replay it. And the big idea behind her work is that you can layer these and build up a scene based on kind of multiple recordings played over one another.
Okay. I think that covers all the questions that were posted to Discord. We talked about we talked about mixed reality. We didn't talk about tracked visible objects, but how would you do that? So we wanted to track a physical object and add it into the scene.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So we don't normally we haven't touched on much kind of AR stuff in Ubiq at the moment, but what we haven't done with Ubiq and what we really ought to do is kind of add things like spatial anchors and that kind of stuff. Currently, that has to be managed outside of Ubiq and kind of networked additionally. So yes, we don't have too much to show on that yet, but I think that would be a good thing for us to continue working perhaps this year.
Yeah, the demo I skipped over because I thought I didn't know which one Jimmy was going to show was an AR visualization of my office. So it's a 3D model scanned with an iPhone of my office, and it's networked. So there is a student project that's been tracking objects in that space and adding them in. It's basically a case if your app works in Unity and you've used a toolkit in Unity to track something, then you might have that client just run that software and network it, and then if you want to deploy that to WebXR and then people load it in WebXR and see it, of course you can't load that toolkit, but you just disable it for that build it for a different version of the app, and then they can all. So one version of the app is tracking all the objects, and other versions of the app don't track the object because they're not able to. So that would be one way of doing it. And there is a student project which isn't open source and isn't online, but and they didn't make their report public because UCL doesn't require students to make their reports public. But I know how it works, and I can happily explain what tools they use to make that work. But to some extent, if your demo works in Unity already, then you can network it, because we've made very few choices that restrict how Ubiq works inside the scene. It's sort of almost a separate part of the scene graph. So other things go on would just be handled normally.
Yeah. So Jingyi's project that you saw the video from before is a good example of how it can work. And I think Nels Newman, who's a PhD student in the group, also had a kind of similar project where one user was in kind of VR in one room, and another user was in AR in the next room along, and the two of them were able to kind of interact. So yeah, definitely possible, but unfortunately kind of managed a bit out of that in Ubiq at the moment. Okay, were there any questions? Hi.
Do you want to ask that one? Or I can read it out. Or
Right. I just wondering what kind of master students you put in the hands of. I mean, it's only computer scientists, or it's local enough so you put it into the hands of, I don't know, students in psychology.
So in theory, I think non-computer science students can take our module that we kind of teach and we use Ubiq as a teaching tool. I'm not sure I've actually spoken to any non-computer science
Did you
students.
try already?
Yeah, it's you know, it's a fairly, when we put students through it, it's a fairly tough thing because they have to be capable with Unity, and then also they have to learn the concepts of kind of networking, and then also kind of Ubiq on top of that, and then on top of that VR. Like, it's a lot to manage inside one module, so I think really probably they want the computer science background. But if somebody was just kind of doing something like running a study where what they needed was just people interacting with no extra component beyond that, or maybe just a static environment, you might be able to get away with it.
There's second-year computer science students, undergrads using it, so I think probably can be learned quite quickly.
And we'll be uploading our tutorial videos as well. So yeah, people can just learn them by themselves.
There's a lot of resources out there, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you mentioned spatial anchors, how would you use spatial anchors in Ubiq? So the meta ones in particular.
Oh, the meta ones. I'm actually not familiar with meta ones. I only used MRTK back in the day. But yes, I mean, how would you handle them? I mean, I think that. Oh, actually, maybe. Ginny, how did you do your AR stuff? Should I pass to you?
Yeah. So the spatial anchor, we use actually the Google Geospatial service to get the position of, and also the VPS, the visual positioning system, to get the anchor of the object, and then once we have the location, like the XY coordinates of that object, we then synchronize it across the room for all users in the room, and that's basically how we use it, I think.
I think because it says meta, it's presumably the mixed reality spatial anchors. So, but the basic thing is you can share any data you like in Ubiq as long as you can serialize it. So you could just make a node that serialized any ID for the spatial anchor and make sure people in the app can load it, and then they can download and synchronize to that. So that would be straightforward, but there's no example code for it. Maybe if you ask us enough, we might have a go at it during the conference.
Yeah, we did a kind of a cultural heritage thing in Cyprus where we used a similar approach, and I think we just used QR codes to spatialize and then shared that across the network.
Okay, I think we've just got a few minutes left. If anybody's got any questions, I'll come and stand up front. Thank you, everybody. So don't move. Any more questions about what we're doing? So demos that we haven't shown. So things that we've built on top of it. There's a paper coming out at Chi from Nels Newman that's been using it with Niantic, and they've been making an AR authoring system that's based on Ubiq. So not directly based on the use and arch idea, but the idea of using how do you make an AR system with people that are sort of in the streets or online. So that's quite good. It's built a lot of that, built up on top of a lot of functionality for authoring and constructing. Another demo you might like is Dreamcode VR. So that is a system that builds on top of the sort of Ubiq Genie, and it does live code editing. So in the pathway we include they included the Roslyn compiler. So you ask ChatGPT to create code, and it live adds it into the Unity scene at runtime. So you can talk about you can talk about behaviours, and it can construct simple behaviours that are added to the scene. That has all the limitations that ChatGPT code has. It may or may not work, that type of thing, but it shows you what you can do with those systems. Any other demos that? The scalability demo includes, because that was one of the reasons we got started in this area, that includes sort of distributed control system. So it's not only simulating the number of agents in the system, but it actually has a control system for running agents on different nodes on a cloud service, so that you're not just pretending to simulate agents, you're actually simulating agents that actually have the full load of a client, and you can spin those up, and I can't remember which. We probably used Azure to do that, but actually uses Ubiq as a command and control system. So if you've got any sort of large-scale distributed simulation systems, that's actually also quite interesting demo to get into, because it's testing Ubiq, but actually has a back-end system that also uses Ubiq to control the simulation, if you see what I mean. That's a lovely demo. Anything else we've forgotten? Okay. Any final questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap up. The URL is ubiq.online. We'll be around. You'll see on the Discord that we've posted the link to our own Discord, where you can ask any questions about. I'll just check very finally if anybody has anything else. Cedric asked you serialize methods. What does Clara do to serialize new objects? You run your own serializer, or you use a pickling or something like that?
For new objects, you can use the spoiling system.
For the recording and playing. Yeah.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, I think that's it then. That's everything we have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.